Carbon in those heavy bottles with the square sides. Not the same at all. Jack took the makeshift fishing gear and stuck it in his shorts pocket so that he bulged comically on both sides instead of just one. I can't believe you're missing out on fishing over this dog. It's not even your dog. It's not even friendly. First day of summer, too. How much of it you gonna waste? Pete shrugged, beginning to feel uncomfortable, like maybe Jack was right. Not sure. Long as it takes, I guess. Well, if you get done, come out to the lake. Yeah, okay. Jack shook his head and walked away. Then he stopped after just a few paces, turned back and scrunched up his face at Pete. You're gonna get bit! You know that! I'll be careful, Pete said, because he didn't know what else to say. He stuck his head into his father's bedroom, relieved to see that his dad was still fast asleep. He tiptoed out to the garage. Pete found his old radio flyer wagon immediately. Finding it was not the problem. Laying his eyes on it was not hard. It was laying his hands on it that would prove challenging. On top of the wagon, his dad had stacked 2 big bundles of National Geographic magazines tied up with twine, a taped-up carton of the good china which they had not been allowed to use since Mom left, 2 old lamps with no bulbs or shades, some of those milk cartons you can stack, and a coiled hose that, Pete knew from memory, leaked. He quietly pulled the items down one by one and arranged them in the opposite corner of the garage. When he finally reached the rusty wagon, he lifted it up and lugged it through the house, knowing that any movement of the garage door would wake his dad. He set it down in the front entryway and opened the door, slowing his actions at the point where he knew the hinges squeaked. Then he carried the wagon to the concrete front walkway. He pulled the door closed behind him, and he was gone. The sun was high by that time, the day already warm. It was a good 3-mile walk between the spot where the dog lay waiting and the only vet in the area, unless it was farther. And that was only the one-way trip. He'd still have to get home. But Pete couldn't take the time to think about that. He had gotten himself into this thing, and it seemed to have no exit. He'd once overheard his mom telling her best friend Judy, "Almost everything is easier to get into than it is to get out of." He hadn't understood her words at the time. The wagon followed along behind him with a distinctive squeak on each revolution of the wheels. It became a monotonous focus for Pete. Something in which to submerge any thoughts and lose himself, if only for the moment. When he got to the spot where the dog had been hit, Pete was sweating heavily, and he could feel his own face radiating heat. There was no dog. At first, he looked up and down the highway, feeling the shocking and sudden wind of cars racing by his back at intervals, flapping his shirt around. He assumed for a moment that he was in the wrong place, but he'd paced it off carefully from the mileage sign, and he didn't want to do it again. It was hot, and he was tired. He looked down at the empty highway shoulder and saw what looked like a trail of disturbed dirt. It looked the way dirt looks when you drag a burlap sack of something along because you don't feel like spending your back to lift it. Pete followed the trail to a spot under a scraggly tree, towing the wagon along behind. "Oh, there you are," he said when he saw the dog. "Good." The dog growled at Pete from deep in his chest. Pete sat down in the dirt and sighed. He looked at the dog, and the dog looked at him. For whatever reason, maybe because Pete was sitting down, the dog did not threaten him again. They stared at each other for an extended time. The dog's small eyes were a golden color, almost yellow. He had a mask of markings on his face like a sled dog, and a massive ruff of fur at his neck. "I got no idea what to do," Pete said. The dog seemed to listen, to follow the words almost as though they had meaning to him. He seemed to be carefully gathering signals from Pete, probably because his life depended on the boy's intentions. "I'm scared of you. I'll just say it straight out. I got no idea how to get you on this wagon. If I can get you on it, I can get you to the vet, but I don't figure you can get on it by yourself, things being what they are with your hip. And I can't imagine how to get it through to you to try on your own anyway."